Good evening, everyone. Time for another member update. Now, this is the 8-hour chart of silver provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. I've drawn in a couple things here. The major trend line that we're looking at, and we've got the volume, and I've got an arrow here pointing to the point where I had posted a chart called breakout or fake out. Now, it was right after I posted that chart, there was an immediate $1 smackdown in the price of silver. We can't see the volume on here, but if we go into the 5-minute chart, we can see that the volume that came in exactly at 2 p.m., and that was on the Fed's release of some minutes that they had. It really doesn't matter what the content of the minutes are. There's no point in trying to discern what the market is thinking, because it really isn't the market thinking anything. This is just the government doing something, and then the people that are pre-positioned to sell. So it could have been pro-tapering, it could have been anti-tapering, it could have been anything. It doesn't matter what the Fed says. It doesn't matter what the Friday morning employment numbers are, whether they're huge gain or huge loss. It doesn't. None of that matters. All that matters is that when those news points hit, the pre-positioned parties to sell silver come and sell silver. Now you can see how much they sold. Got about 10,000 contracts here, and you can see the price fell fairly hard, started to do a little bounce rally here, and was coming up until we got this massive attack here. You can see 20,000 contracts and another 15 and 10 or so. We're talking about 40,000 contracts in here. That comes to about 200 million ounces of silver. Now, a lot of people have disagreed with the claim that this is contracts. I think when we look at what Bixweir has to say, it's going to show that this really is. I'm not sure if NetDania also has some LBMA or cash numbers here, but the two seem to line up. So silver is under attack. It's always under attack. If we go back to the 8 hours, you can see that this volume here, which is an absolutely astounding amount of volume, at 11.5 million contracts. But we know that date, you can see it right there, April 15th, the Boston bombing. And of course, as we go back farther, we've got the May smackdown that I always point out, Osama bin Laden, Obama birth certificate, massive attack. So silver's right at the heart of this, but you can see that the Boston bombing figure here, unbelievable. It comes up on this as 45 million contracts. So the volume we've seen recently is not nearly as much, but the pattern of the volume is the same. As soon as the silver market starts to rally and break through technical points, then there's the attack. Now, if we look at the Bixweir article, and this is an expose of Jeffrey Christian. Actually, it's pointing out that Christian has actually admitted that the silver market is manipulated, but you know, Jeffrey Christian has recently been in the news for attacking Andrew Maguire. Of course, that's the signature of these snakes. But anyway, I want to point out to you the amount of silver that Bix is talking about here. He says Christian's assertion was that wild swings in the price of silver were not being caused by rogue market riggers, but by multiple computer algorithms and high-frequency trading programs firing at the same time on the COMEX Silver Exchange based on the same program triggers. Christian claims that the simultaneous nature of these trades spring from all trading houses using the same algorithms they learned at the same colleges. So apparently what they learned at the same colleges is that when the Fed gives the word, it's time to attack. Trading volumes on the COMEX supports this assertion, as the COMEX is on track to trade over 80 billion equivalent ounces of silver derivatives in 2013, which is 1,800 times the amount of registered physical silver on the COMEX. Now, if you take that 80 billion figure and divide that by the number of trading days, I use 200, maybe 250, it doesn't really matter, but you come to roughly 30 to 40 or 300 to 400 million ounces of silver that are traded per day. Now, if we go back to these volume figures that we were looking at here, and we calculate these as contracts, we can see that the recent days have been fairly active. But if we go back and look at these, it comes to roughly the same figure. We're talking about 300 to 400 million ounces of silver trading every day. So, of course, there's the question, why is so much silver trading? We already know the answer, that 98, 99, 99.9% of all the silver that's traded is fake silver. It's silver that doesn't exist. The people that are selling it don't have any silver. The people that are buying it, they want to get silver, but they're being chased out by dollars. So it's derivatives and dollars that are trading. It's not silver. So I want to take you over to this Chris Duane expose that I pinned at the top of the blog. And by the way, I apologize. The blog has been under attack. I'm still trying to work it out. It's some kind of DOS attack or DDoS attack. I'm not really sure what it is, but the blog goes down. I can barely even get to it. And I've worked with my hosting provider. There were times when the database access numbers were through the roof, so much that the provider had to shut them down, yet at the same time there was no one on the site. So I'm going to have to do a lot of security work on the site to figure out what's going on. But let's play this Sinclair video here, and I want you to pay close attention to what Jim Sinclair actually said.
And Jim is known as Mr. Gold. He's widely published and followed in the precious metals community. And I've never really paid too much attention to him because he never really talks about silver. And recently gave this cryptic comment about silver that really raised my attention to him and what he's really moving towards. On October 5th, his comment concerning silver was thus: "Gold will protect you in this transition. Silver will give you a cheap thrill followed by a spiritual existence devoid of a teacher." When pressed to clarify his statement, he seemed to deride silver. He responded to silver's final price after its meteoric rise depends on the economic conditions at the end of the game. Silver has industrial purposes as well as precious. He goes on to say that silver is more hated than gold by the banksters, and making it thus the most hated of all precious metals. And he goes on to conclude that I must admit that silver aficionados are even more uptight than gold files in the gold's price action. So I think his comment makes sense if he knows that the dollar versus gold Hegelian dialectic is merely a ploy to continue the criminal elite's power in a post-paradigm world. He says that silver will have a meteoric rise, but who will be in control of the next paradigm will determine what the ultimate perceived value of silver is. If the current criminal elite run the table once more and make a gold-backed digital currency and remonetize it, driving much of the demand towards gold relative to silver, he states that silver is the most hated of all precious metals, and after seeing the reasons why they hate it, because it challenges the gold standard that they want, and that's why they hate it. The criminal elite have had a war on silver for hundreds of years since the crime of 1873.
So Chris goes on with the history of the banksters' attacks against silver. Very good stuff. I encourage you to watch that. Now, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't think that Jim Sinclair hates silver. I think that Jim Sinclair is afraid of silver and afraid of the people who want to stop silver specifically. Now, these people, I'm going to call them the silver cowards. And there's a large number of these people, a lot of people that people trust, and their behavior is somewhat bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. But when you think about the fact that silver is such a tiny market, that if any of these people who are, some of them are billionaires, I think the exception that I would think of would be Eric Sprott. He's the only one I can think of that has a lot of power and money that is not a silver coward. But let's look at some of the silver cowards here, because their behavior is just, it's nearly inexplicable. So we're going to start off with FOFOA. Now, if you remember, FOFOA did a huge silver open forum post. It wasn't him, supposedly. It was this Costadas person. But anyway, I went through it and debunked it line by line. But the bottom line is, when you get down to the very bottom, is the similar sort of thing that Chris is saying, that Jim is saying, that the powers that be are going to crush it. And this is the statement from FOFOA. The SLA, that's the Silver Liberation Army, he's criticizing Max Kaiser's attack against JP Morgan. The SLA needs to ask itself a few questions as we conclude this thought experiment. Who is holding this gold? Why are they holding this gold? How much power and influence do they have? What are their options and capacity to respond to the threat you pose? If the SLA gets carried away with delusions of grandeur and the silver advocates start to achieve their aims, then the governments and giants who hold this gold will respond. You can understand that, can't you? The moment that silver presents a clear and present danger to their interests, they will understand this threat. The threat that their gold is soon to become worthless. They will squash the silver bugs like a bug. Silver would then be a losing bet for political reasons. If the SLA is clearly going to fail, then silver holders will be perfectly safe. The gold holders will simply ignore them. Silver will be a safe losing bet until the game theory kicks in. And he wraps up. Are you holding the right metal? Implying that the right metal is gold. So there's another silver coward who's saying that it's not for fundamental reasons, but that the people who hate silver, just as Jim Sinclair hinted at, are too powerful, and I have too much money. I'm not going to threaten them. Now let's look at another silver coward, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett bought 100-something million ounces of silver in 1998. It was a perfect play. Let's read some of this. The recent revelation that the renowned investor Warren Buffett sold his silver was a mega event. It was big news when Mr. Buffett bought silver some 8 or 9 years ago, and its sale is also big news. Let me state the facts as I know them, and then I'll speculate. Mr. Buffett always said he would make it known when he sold his silver, and he kept his word, using the occasion of his company's annual meeting to tell of the sale. While he did not reveal the exact amount, time, and price of the sale, he indicated that he sold too early and did not profit from the sale. I found that very surprising and particularly unusual for Buffett. Now think about this. He promised he would tell you when he sold his silver, but he sold too early. Then if he told you when he sold, how did he know he sold too early? How did he know the price was going to rise from there? That doesn't make sense. According to public statements, Mr. Buffett had amassed a large chunk of silver between 90 and 130 million ounces by early 1998 at low prices under $6. Mr. Buffett was very clear as to why he purchased the silver, citing the fundamentals in the same manner as I've described them and professing to be in for the long term. And of course, he sold his silver and then silver rocketed higher. So we can see that Warren Buffett chickened out on silver, another silver coward. And let's look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates is another silver coward. He chickened out as well. The biggest rally in silver since 1979 is benefiting the commodities market's largest investors, including Bill Gates, the world's richest man. The Microsoft chairman, Cascade Investment, is the second largest shareholder in Vancouver, BC's based mining company Pan American Silver. His 3.32 million shares of Pan American are valued at $85 million and have tripled since 1999 when Gates made the investment. Now, we know that Gates bailed out of that. Gates is no longer promoting silver. Let's take a look at Jimmy Rogers. Now, everybody, including myself, respects Jimmy Rogers. Jimmy Rogers wrote a book in 2004, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. It might have been 2006. It was called Hot Commodities. And he went and showed all the reasons why there's a perfect setup for commodities, because there's going to be inflation, and commodities are tremendously undervalued based on historical reasons. And we can see here are the chapters In his book, Hot Commodities, Next New Thing, Stepping Up to Commodities, the Commodities Markets, Notes from the Wild, Wild East, and then he goes into some commodities. Goodbye Cheap Oil, Gold, Palladium and Platinum, Sugar, and he goes into coffee, and he talks about others, but he doesn't talk about silver. Now, why is that? So we see this pattern here. We see this pattern of billionaires who are not stupid people by any means, yet they are silver cowards. They're afraid of investing any significant amounts of money in silver. Now, we know the reason why, at least I think we know the reason why, and that reason is that the silver market is so tiny that if a large number of billionaires started to invest in silver, you can see right here, FOFOA says the moment that silver presents a clear and present danger to their interests, they will understand this threat. They will squash the silver bugs like a bug. So I don't think that FOFOA is making this up. I think that this is real. I think that the people who are billionaires who begin to invest in silver, I don't know why Eric Sprott isn't one of them, but for the most part, the billionaires and multimillionaires who have gone after silver, seeing the clear undervalued nature of silver, end up either chickening out, backing out, fading out, or just fading away or ignoring silver. And we've seen that now with Jim Sinclair. So there's definitely a manipulation of the price of silver. It is, in my opinion, the largest manipulation in the history of the world. It is also the largest undervalued asset in the history of the world. The bankers know that. The billionaires know that. The powers that be know that. You and I know that. But the fact of the matter is that the little guy, you and I, and of course that's why people like myself and Chris Duane, SGT, and others are trying to get the word out that you need to stack silver, where people like FOFOA and Jim Sinclair and others, who I call the silver cowards, are trying to scare you away from silver. They're afraid to touch silver themselves. But if this battle is going to be won, it's not going to be won with the aid of the billionaires. It's going to be all of the little silver stackers gathering together and buying silver and eventually putting the banksters out of business. And we'll talk to you next time.